You need to see this. It's
something that'll change the world and human life as we know it.
He knows. He's seen the light.
When Monty talks, it's painful.
Monty, you have been so instrumental in kind of pointing me in the right direction. And
it was about looking at your character defects in spirituality.
It's the integration of clinical practices with the 12 steps.
It's an absolute pleasure. He certainly knows a lot of people. He's got a lot of energy, and sometimes when you don't have so much energy, he picks you up and carries you.
Having the Monty man there certainly helps.
This is one of the places that is about the business of the solution.
The views expressed on this special broadcast of the Take 12 radio show do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting or its affiliates. KHLT is not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
Now here's that guy who's getting less popular minute by minute. Your host, the Multi-Man.
Well, zippity-doo-dah day. Welcome to the show, my friends. It's good to have you with us. You have tuned into us here at Take12Radio.com on your internet dial. There's 3 ways to listen to the show. You can click on our YouTube version. You can click on the Adobe Flash Player play button if your device shows that, depending on what you're using. Or you can click on the download MP3 link. Now, if you would like to do more than listen to the show, you can right-click where it says click here to hear MP3. You can right-click on that and then save as or save link as or save target as, whatever it says to save as, depending on the computer you're using or the device. And you can download the show and you can keep that thing and make a copy of it, do whatever you like with it, share it. So there's that there. Now, our email address is take12radio@comcast.net. And September is National Recovery Month. And so stay tuned to our station and check our website out. Subscribe on our website. You'll get updates 3 times a week. And just keep an eye because we're going to be kind of traveling all over the Pacific Northwest covering some different events. I think we got 3 main ones going on. So you want to keep up on that kind of thing. We got the Recovery Northwest Project, Hands Across the Bridge. We've got Come Rest a While, Sober Living event that we're going to cover, and the Free by the Sea, Run for Recovery on the coast, beautiful coast of Ocean Park, Washington. So you don't want to miss any of those things. All right. So today on the show, now look, you guys out there, if I were to ask you to raise your hand if you would admit that you have a hard time understanding what meditation means, I will bet you that many of you would be raising your hand. There was a time that I would have been doing that too. You may understand prayer, but you may not understand meditation. And prayer and meditation is something we talk not enough about in our 12-step resentment meetings. Or so my buddy Chris Schroeder calls them your 12-step closed-minded meetings. And though we poke fun at that, we don't talk about it enough, but I'm going to tell you, it's in the literature of all mainstream 12-step fellowships. It's all over the place. And I think we need to talk about it more. And one of the reasons, or one of the ways we're going to do that is on today's show. My guest is author Mike D. Now Mike's been on the show before. We've talked about his book, Letting God In, One Alcoholic Talks to Another About AA Sports Step. By the way, to give you a plug for this book, listeners, I now use this book before I ever have anybody open the big book. I sit down with them, with my sponsees, and we read this book because I have never read anything that counts the cost of what we're about to embark on in my life better than this book. So you really need to look into this. Letting God In, One Alcoholic Talks to Another About AA Sports Step by Mike D. Now, we're going to be talking to Mike about his new book today called Basic Prayer and Simple Meditation. A recovering alcoholic talks about beginning spirituality. Spirituality, a real broad term. It means a lot of different things for a lot of people. Sometimes I think it may be a little too broad of a term. We'll see what Mike thinks. But we're going to be talking about his new book, Basic Prayer and Simple Meditation, which is another phenomenal read and should be a part, especially if you're working with other people. This needs to be in your arsenal. It really, really does. Mike, welcome back to the show, buddy.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
You've done it again, and I'm gonna go ahead and read my endorsement. Mike was kind enough to include Take 12 Radio's endorsement of this book, and I write, wow, author Mike D has done it again in this anointed book. This is the first time I have read a book that explains the practical application and implementation of this vital practice so that anyone can understand it. Never again will you be confused about prayer. Never again will you be perplexed concerning meditation. And that's my endorsement of this book, and I mean every single word of it. Mike, what inspired you to write this book?
What inspired me to write Basic Prayer and Simple Meditation is just many years of hearing people in AA meetings say, I understand how to pray, and I do pray, and I try to pray regularly, but meditation is just something that I can't do. It seems strange. It seems mysterious. It seems like something I just can't figure out. I think a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to figure out meditation, and what I found in my recovery is that what I had to do is I just had to start taking the action of meditation. And when I did that, it all fell together for me, and I began to understand things and realize things that I never knew before. And there have just been so many people in AA in the meetings that I go to who say, "Well, I just can't meditate. I get distracted too much. It's just something I can't do."
Yeah.
And I've tried to take all the confusion out of it and break it down so that people can understand it. And that's what I've always had to do with my sponsees. And they always eventually got it.
Yeah, you bet. And meditation, even the word kind of stirs up kind of a mysterious element to it for many of us. When we were brand new in recovery, and really, to be honest, for a lot of people that are old timers, even true.
Yes, I think that there are a lot of people who have been in the program for a long, long time and have diligently worked all the previous steps. But when it came to step 11, they just pretty much rely on prayer and don't even bother with meditation because it seems too confusing to them, and they feel like they can't do it. And again, the reason I wrote the book is I want to convey the message to everyone, whether you're new or been around a long time, that meditation is just an action that we take in the program, just like all the other actions that we take. And the only way you can fail at meditation is by failing to take the action of meditation.
Yeah, good point. Now, step 11, for those who may not know, this is what it reads. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. That's from AA's Big Book, page 59. So we hear many times in the different fellowships that steps 10, 11, and 12 are the maintenance steps, and I take issue with that. I think that they are the continuing to grow in our walk with our Creator steps, and not simply just maintenance. This is, I think this whole thing of prayer and meditation is so vital, and yet I think in so many circles, it just kind of gets clouded over. You know, I don't know. We read it. We say prayers in the beginning of meetings, at the end of meetings. The Big Book talks about it. The NA Basic Text talks about it. Other literature talks about it. Why don't we talk about it more?
Well, I haven't attended very many meetings where meditation itself was actually discussed, and usually when it is discussed at all, usually the topic changes, because I think a lot of us, I'm not going to say the majority, but I think a lot of us just don't understand it. And step 11 is one of those steps that it's no different than all of the previous steps. We don't want to do the steps partially.
Mm-hmm.
None of us would want to do step 4 partially or step 5 partially.
Right.
But when it comes to step 11, we just pray, but we don't commence meditation.
Well, let's start out. Let's crack open this book a little bit, and let's start out with the prayer piece. Now, it's interesting because I had to chuckle a little bit, because for some folks, they may not know this. The book 12 Steps and 12 Traditions was originally going to be just a book on the traditions. And, Bill kind of understood that might not work. And so, not because he was so crazy about doing a commentary on the steps, but because he knew if he did that, that book would probably fly off the shelves, and it did. And so you have the steps in the beginning, which is it's not a direction on how to work the program. It's what it should look like. But you have the steps in the beginning, and then you have the traditions. And I love your book because the prayer, talking about prayer, is how you start out with it. For me, it's kind of the hook, and then it kind of draws me into the meditation part. And I don't know if you intended that or not, but it worked for me. And so congratulations. Now I opened this book up, and the first chapter is Spiritual Kindergarten. What a perfect title for chapter 1. This is a term that is used in AA literature, and it is certainly something that we need to realize, that when we're embarking on this new journey, that, we are in spiritual kindergarten. And my favorite story in this whole book, and I cannot tell you, Mike, how many times I have shared this with people. And I'd like you to share it. My favorite story is in this first chapter about the bird, about being free as a bird. Can you expound on that a little bit before we move on?
Yes, that sparrow.
Yeah,
that sparrow. I'm sitting in my prayer place right now, and I have a window that I talk about in the book where I can see my backyard, and as I would be in the mornings, early in the mornings, as I would be doing my morning prayer and meditation, I would watch the birds fly around and outside, and this sparrow was flying around my window, and he got my attention. He kind of changed my thought pattern, and I thought about how neat it would be if I could just be as free as that bird, And the more I thought about it, I started to realize something, that he is actually not as free as I think he is. He's obeying laws and rules and principles just to maintain flight. And I started to understand that his obedience to those laws of aerodynamics are what actually gives him his freedom. And I realized that my obedience to spiritual principles is what causes my freedom, what really gives me my freedom. And so I had kind of a mental turnaround. Maybe I could call it a breakthrough.
Yeah.
I began to understand obedience in a much different way. I never did like the word obedience. In the past.
Yeah.
I never did really like that word.
Yeah, who does?
No. And so I had quite a turnaround that morning. I came downstairs with a whole new attitude and way of thinking about it.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, the bottom line is that bird is going to, I mean, if it does not obey the law of aerodynamics, it is going to fall flat on its face.
Yes.
And I had this discussion with one of my co-hosts today about this whole thing of powerlessness. I said, when you really get down to it, if that bird does not obey the laws of aerodynamics, it can't fly. It doesn't have the ability. It's powerless to fly.
Right.
And so that's kind of like us.
It's very much like us, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an awesome analogy. I just really appreciate it. Before we go to our first break, I want to touch on this. In the chapter Why We Pray, you give an analogy of a house plant. Explain that to the listeners.
That's chapter 2, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, what I was really trying to do in that chapter is that's really the first introduction to the reality that the purpose of prayer is that we may be influenced by God. And that chapter came to me over a period of many years. And what was it you were wanting me to expound on?
Well, you talk about you like to equate with your sponsoree's prayer with a house plant sitting near a window in your home.
Yes, the house plant.
And how the house plant, its growth is dependent on it being in the light.
Yes, well, I always noticed how my plants in my office here would bend themselves toward the light, and they were really reaching out.
Mm-hmm.
They were actually doing something to respond to get what they needed.
Yeah,
they were reaching out, and I started to see that's what prayer is, and just as the sunlight influences a plant, when I pray, when any of us pray, what we're doing is we're reaching out to God and reaching for that grace, like a plant reaches for the sunlight.
Yeah. And what I love about your book is it's filled with analogies like this. It's so simple and easy to understand. I know how we are, and when we pick up, a book that's bigger than a mule, our tendency isn't to read it. But your book, this is an easy read. It's a short read, and it is, like I said, in that's on the back of your book. You're going to understand prayer. You're not going to be perplexed concerning meditation if you read this book, folks. Listen, we're going to take a break. The website that I want you to visit is mikeDauthor.blogspot.com. You can go to the links here on Friday's page. You can also go to our main page. You'll see a banner that says 12-Step Recovery Books by Mike D. Please click on it. It is well worth your while. Okay, more when we come back. We're going to talk about prayer and action when we return, and then we're going to move into this whole meditation deal. Don't go away. More with Mike D. Exciting, informative, and phenomenal is the Recovery Northwest Project on Saturday, September 5th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Clark Community College in beautiful Vancouver, Washington. September is National Recovery Month, and what better way to celebrate than to attend the Recovery Northwest Project? Recovery presenters, exhibitors, and some of the most incredible people of the Pacific Northwest coming together to carry the message of hope in recovery from substance abuse and its co-occurring mental health challenges. The Recovery Northwest Project is a collective group of all types of entities in Washington and Oregon with a common goal of bringing recovery awareness to the local, regional, and national communities. Don't miss the Recovery Northwest Project. Visit recoverynw.org.
Origins Recovery Centers provides integrated inpatient treatment for substance abuse and co-occurring disorders. At Origins, clients receive expert medical, clinical, and spiritual care individually designed for their needs. Our clients leave Origins with the foundation upon which they will build the rest of their lives. Call now to speak with an admissions specialist. Our toll-free number is 888-843-8935. That's 888-843-8935. Origins, delivering real solutions for real families.
Welcome back to the show. My guest this week, author Mike D. Mike D. we're keeping his name in the autonomy thing here. The anonymity thing is so important here, and we respect that. He is known as Mike D. He is an author. He is also a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's why we are respecting the tradition of anonymity. But you can find his books at mikedauthor.blogspot.com. And the book we're talking about is his brand new book, Basic Prayer and Simple Meditation. Mike, one of the things that has disturbed me for some time is the phrase, let go and let God. Not that the phrase disturbs me. I understand the heart behind it. But what I see so many people do, and this is reflected in chapter 3, in the very first two paragraphs, is this kind of mentality of, well, I'm just going to, pray and then let God do all the work. And, if he doesn't come through, then it's probably because I didn't do something right. And then I beat myself up, or he doesn't love me, or he isn't listening, or he doesn't care, or whatever it is. You address this a little bit, that this let go and let God thing can be kind of dangerous, right?
Well, if we think about it in the wrong way, I think it's a very good saying in AA. I think it's a very good, if you want to call it a slogan.
Mm-hmm.
But it can be kind of self-destructive if we don't look at it in the right way. And just exactly like you, I did the very same things early in sobriety. I took that let go and God saying so literally, and what I was doing was I was praying and letting go of whatever it was that I was supposed to do in response. And just say, well, God's going to take care of this, Well, what I didn't know when I was doing that is that God was trying to get through to me to tell me what he wanted me to do, what he needed me to do, to participate with him in what I was asking for. And it took me a few years to realize that I needed to take action. When I asked God to take action for me, I need to be willing to participate with him in that action. And there's a part that only he can do, but there's a part that I must do as well.
Yeah.
It took me a while to learn that, Monty.
Right, and I think some very well-meaning people who have said, I'll just let go and let God. I mean, I don't think they mean anything destructive behind it, but I think we need to be careful when we throw these platitudes and slogans around with people. We need to be careful. And I think that's one of the reasons I love your books, is because it really shows us where we need to be careful. There's a right way and a wrong way. I mean, the right way for the bird to fly is to obey the laws of nature, the laws of aerodynamics. The wrong way is not to, and he falls out of the sky.
Right.
If we leave people with platitudes only, not only are they probably going to drink or use again, they're probably not going to get restored to sanity.
Exactly.
And so it's got to go deeper than that. And, I encourage people, if your God is the 12 steps, at some point, it's got to go deeper than that.
Yeah, it has to.
Yeah, you bet. So let me ask you a question before we go on to my next statement here. Do you think spirituality is too broad of a term?
Well, like you said earlier, it means a lot of different things to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Which is confusing to many of us, and it was confusing me at first,
Yeah.
But I tell you what cleared things up for me about things in the program is that what I had to do first was just take the actions.
Mm-hmm.
Just take the actions. And what I didn't know is that the actions were changing my mind. All I had to do was be willing and open and just take the actions. And I changed as I took the actions. I could say that the actions changed me. But what was really happening is I was opening myself up to God, who was changing me.
Hmm.
And I started to see things differently. Those slogans can be misunderstood.
Yeah. Yeah, they sure can. And that concerns me a bit. But I think the best thing we can do as people, you know, and this is not a pat on my back by any means, because it's only because of the grace of God, but those of us who have some sort of understanding of the literature and the directions, it's our responsibility to be in these circles and listen so we can be of maximum service to God and our fellows.
Yeah.
And if we'll do that, we can come alongside people and say, you know, what was said today, there was a lot of really good things about that, but maybe you should consider this, you know, and do it in a way that's wise and gentle, but still, sometimes we got to speak up, don't we?
Well, I think we have to share our experience.
Yeah.
You know, I think that we do have to speak up and share our experience. I don't like to see people get in conflict with things in meetings, but
no, that's never useful.
But when I share something in a meeting, it's my experience. It's not my theory. It's not my perception.
Right.
My experience.
It's your experience. Yeah.
And it's pretty hard to be in conflict with what my experience is, you know.
Yeah, that's true. Very, very true. In chapter 4, which is entitled "Why Do I Pray?" you make a statement, and I'm going to play devil's advocate. Can I do that?
Yes.
Okay. You say there's never any wrong or right way to pray. Really?
Are there wrong or right ways to pray?
Yeah, you say never. While there are never any wrong or right ways to pray, there actually are certain things we can do to make it better and keep us on a good track. I was reading your book with one of my sponsees, and he stopped me. He says, "Seriously, there isn't a wrong way to pray?" And so let me put that to you. I don't think that was the spirit of your statement, saying that. I mean, there's obviously selfish prayers, right? You're talking about the method, true?
Yes, I'm talking about the methodology.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about, you know...
the prayer itself.
I think that it's true that I've been on the wrong track many times when I was praying.
Yeah.
When I was newly in the program. But you know what I was doing? I was learning. And I was growing, and I think that every person has to start their prayer life wherever they're at, and it may be very rudimentary.
Yeah,
you know, it may be a lot of things, but we have to start wherever we're at, because I know that my prayer life today isn't the same as it was 27 years ago.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah,
me either.
And one thing that has evolved about me is that naturally, just like many of us, you know, we're selfish, and so we pray for our own selfish ends. And the Big Book tells us that that doesn't really get us anywhere, you know.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, in your before we get into taking the action of meditation, you have a chapter before that called "Hidden in Plain View," and one of the things you stated is something that I kind of stated at the beginning of the show. You say, "quote How many of you?" You're talking about like in a meeting, for instance. How many of you believe that you don't know how to meditate? Is your question? End quote.
Yes.
And then you ask, "How many of you know how to hold a resentment?" And I told my wife that. She just started busting up laughing. Because it's that old thing. Well, if you know how to hold a resentment, you know how to meditate, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So
exactly.
Expound on that. 'Cause I love it.
What I didn't know is when I thought I didn't know how to meditate, I've been meditating all my life. I just been meditating on the wrong things.
Right. Been meditating on the negative.
You know, just like you were asking me about, is there a wrong way to pray? Well, there's certainly a wrong way to meditate. But when I was holding all those resentments that I shared in my fifth step, the first time, I was really meditating on my ego.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
I'm all I think about all day.
All day long.
Wow, you're right. And so your philosophy, and I happen to agree, is that we already know how to meditate because we've been doing it.
We do. All we have to do is learn that when we were holding resentments, we were meditating upside down, more or less.
Yeah.
And basically, what we're shown how to do in our AA literature is to turn it right side up, move away from the ego, and move toward God.
And that's the right way to meditate. Now, you talk about in the AA literature, it talks about developing our vital sixth sense, and you equate this to meditation, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so you say it doesn't mean that you have to try to acquire something new that you've never had before. It means you can develop, and it's in italics, means pay attention to this word, develop something you've always had all your life by finally putting it to right use and making it better and stronger. So when you say that to a sponsoree, when you say, you know what, you've been meditating for years, you know how to meditate, it's just upside down. What's the response you get from them?
They certainly can't argue. They know it's true. Once they understand that meditation is, and I kind of describe in my book what meditation is where we take a set of words and we kind of chew on them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we roll them around in our mind, and that's the same thing I did with many people's. You know, somebody would say something that hurt my feelings, you know, and I would just chew on that for days and weeks, and it would affect me in the way I thought. It would affect me in the way I felt. I felt terrible. It would affect me. It would affect how I acted out in public.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And that's just one resentment. I had probably about 142 of them, you know. I don't know how many I had. I didn't count them all. But if you sit and chew on somebody else's words that hurt you that long, it's really going to affect you. Well, the same thing happens when I focus my mind on good words, uplifting words. And like maybe from the big book or maybe from my daily devotional or from the Bible, wherever, but focus on something else that takes me away from me. And chew on those words a while.
Yeah.
And see where that leads you. You know, it does. I honestly believe that you cannot meditate for very long without it having an impact on you. It will change you inside.
Well, it must, because when we meditate on the negative, when we hold resentments, it changes us, doesn't it? We produce cortisol, we have congestive heart failure, we're stressed out, our sugar levels go up, or they may go down, we get sick. So it just makes sense.
It's a very physiological effect on us.
Yeah.
When we hold anger.
And our spirits are in turmoil. So it just makes sense that if you flip that around, the opposite is true.
Exactly. You focus on the negative, you're going to react negatively. If you focus on the positive, you're going to react positively. You know, hey, let me ask you something, Monty. How many people have you ever heard of that thought to learn to meditate they had to go to Tibet?
Oh, yeah, tons. Yeah. Or they got to go pay $100 to go see Tony Robbins, or they got to do something.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And what we usually don't know is it's right there inside us. It's built in. We have the ability to hear God speak to us, and God does speak words to us. He speaks to our heart. That's where all words always go anyway, straight to the heart. He doesn't need our ears. He speaks to us, and he's all. What I finally realized one day is that God was speaking to me when I was 1 year old.
Wow.
And I just wasn't listening. And I just was not listening.
Wow.
All those years, I had to become an alcoholic to learn to listen to God speak to me. He was always talking to me all along.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that I believe that he was telling me the most?
What's that?
I love you.
Oh, my gosh.
I love you.
Wow. That's, that's moving, brother.
If I
moves me.
ever convey the message to another alcoholic that God has always loved you, even when you were at your worst, so many people wouldn't have so much trouble with this God deal.
Yeah.
This God isn't trying to hurt you. He's trying to heal you.
He's on your side.
He's not against you. God has never been against us. We've just been against him.
Oh, boy. That is, truer words have not been spoken. God is, in fact, if God is for us, who can be against us, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. One of the things that a good friend of mine says, he says, Monty, he says, you understand God loves you, right? And I go, yeah, of course. He goes, what if I told you God even likes you? Wow.
Yeah.
Now that's a concept.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to look at this. There's actually what I love about your book is that you just don't leave us with this. You actually give us kind of an example of how we can do this. There's actually three steps here. This is in the chapter Taking the Action of Meditation. I want to read 1, 2, and 3 when we come back. Don't go away. More with Mike D., author of Basic Prayer and Simple Meditation. A recovering alcoholic talks about beginning spirituality when we come back.
Men, women, and their families experience tremendous pain and suffering due to the struggles they face from substance abuse and its co-occurring mental health challenges. They need to find a safe place for peace and healing. Therapia Addiction Healing Center was born out of a deep desire to provide that safe and powerful healing environment. Therapia exists to help people recover from addictions by developing and maintaining healthy, meaningful relationships with God, self, and others. To speak with an addiction specialist, call 1-855-652-4325. That's 1-855-652-4325. Or visit our website at www.therapia.net. Therapia Addiction Healing Center, restoring lives one step at a time.
Hey, you! Yeah, you! It's the Monty Man from Take 12 Recovery Radio. And as a journalist, I get a ton of literature from folks to read every single year. And I simply can't get to everything. But there is one publication I never miss. It's the 12-Step Gazette. This is an award-winning recovery magazine for Philly, South Jersey, and surrounding counties. And is distributed nationwide and can be viewed even on the internet. Rehabs, detoxes, helplines, puzzles, classifieds, columnists, events, an hilarious humor page, and so much more. All found in the 12-Step Gazette. To get your copy of the 12-Step Gazette, visit www.12stepgazette.com today.
They say I'm crazy, but
all right, welcome back. My guest is Mike D., author of several books. One of them is Letting God In, when alcoholic talks to another about AA's Step 4. His newest book, we're talking about today, Basic Prayer and Simple Meditation. A recovering alcoholic talks about beginning spirituality. And by the way, just because the word beginning is in here, doesn't mean that if you've been around for years and years and years that you shouldn't read this. You should have a copy of this book. And if you've been around for years and years, I hope you're working with other alcoholics. I really, really do. And you should have this. You really need this because it is so simple. It explains it in a way that anybody can understand it. You can get a copy of Mike's book by clicking on the link on our website at take12radio.com. Mike, this is also on Amazon, true?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And it's also available on Amazon as an ebook.
As an ebook as well, so they can download it that way. Mike's
one of the things that I hope to do in the future is look into creating it as an audiobook.
Right. Well, and I just got a gut feeling somewhere in my gut that that's exactly what's going to happen. I'll tell you about that someday. All right.
Okay.
So, So in taking the action of meditation, that'd be one thing to just say, you need to meditate, you need to understand it, it's not that hard, and then there you go, and you leave everybody with that. But you give an outline here, and I'm just gonna read it. Number one, you say, you may start by taking a couple of deep breaths and spending a few moments in prayer. Now, this isn't, people think, oh, well, that's what the Eastern philosophy people do. Well, that's nothing new. This is biblical too. So for those out there, that we have a lot of Christians that listen to the show. For those of you out there that are going, oh, this sounds like Eastern yoga or something, calm down. Just calm down, would you? This is a very biblical principle. You may start by taking a couple of deep breaths. It's important to take some deep breaths. And spending a few moments in prayer. Talk to God. You go on to say you can read certain written prayers that you happen to like. Some people do that. Or you can just talk to God in a spontaneous way. If nothing else, you could say the Serenity Prayer. It doesn't matter either way. Take as long as you like with your beginning prayers. So that's number one. Then you go on with number two. Next, open your favorite devotional book or your Bible to any page you want and read a short message. Think about what the words are saying to you. Roll them around in your mind for a little while. Think of how those words could apply to you and how they might fit into your life. Read them again, more slowly. Take as much time as you need to allow those words to sink deep down inside you. Picture how those words could change your actions in your daily life. So what I did in number two here, I just randomly opened up 24 hours a day book, and I read the first sentence under meditation for the day. It says, God is your healer and your strength. That's all I read.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could take, God is my healer and my strength. Roll that around in my mind for a little bit, and then think how those words apply to my life, how they fit into my life, and then read it again. God is my healer and my strength. Now, you know what? When I say that, even talking about that here, when I do that and I read it again and more slowly, it becomes a whole lot more powerful than just reading it, oh, I'm going to read this. Something happens. Then you say, number three, when you're ready, you can end with a few more moments of prayer. Now, so what I might do is, God, I recognize that you are my healer. You are my strength. I'm powerless, but you're my strength. I may say something as simple as that. Then you say, now, if you just did this, I'm going to guess that you may have spent about 5 or 10 minutes with it, more or less. But if you did, you just succeeded at doing step 11. You just accomplished prayer and meditation. How simple is that?
There's nothing more simple, is there, Monty?
No, that's awesome.
And it's, I think that we alcoholics have complicating minds, which means that whatever we place before us, we'll make it as complicated as we can. And it's our alcoholic mind that does that. And with God, things are simpler.
Yeah, it sure seems to be that way.
You know what your human alcoholic mind has probably done to you in the past. Well, mine has too.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out that things are a lot more simple than I ever realized they were.
Mm.
And this is the simplest way to meditate. You don't have to go to Tibet to do this.
Yeah, you don't. You save a whole lot of money on plane fare. You know what is so wonderful, and I'm gonna spill over into something here, if I may. Those of you who are not of the Christian faith that listen, and many of you aren't, and I appreciate the fact that you keep tuning in. You've been tuning in for 11 years, and you put up with me. But hold on to your horses just for a second. What I just love about the particular faith that you and I share is that we don't need to go to a specific person of authority. We don't need to, cross a bridge into, the Rainbow Mountain or go to a synagogue or a church we can go into God's throne room of grace and have an audience with Him anytime we like.
Anytime we like.
That blows my mind.
It blows my mind too, Monty, because what occurred to me one day is if I wanted to talk to the Queen of England,
mm-hmm.
I would never be able to get in. If I wanted to talk to the Pope, I probably wouldn't be able to get in very soon. If I wanted to talk to the President, I'd never get in. I wouldn't get past the fence. And all of these important people in the world, I would never be able to get in to talk to them. But all I have to do is raise my mind and heart up, and I get to talk to the Creator of the entire universe.
That's wild, man. Especially when we think while we were enemies of God, He was our friend.
He was always our friend.
He's
always on our side.
Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. I don't want to give away the rest of this book. There's so much great stuff in here, and like I said, folks, it's an easy read. It helps you to comprehend what otherwise may have been, or before this, may have been very confusing to so many of you. I thought I had a pretty good grasp on meditation, and then I read this book, and now I even have a better one. In fact, it's simpler, and I love it. I absolutely love it. One of the things that you talk about in here is being comfortable with being imperfect.
Yes.
And let's go back to what we were saying about alcoholics. One of the things we love to do, if we're not prideful, we love that false humility. I'm not worthy. I'm no good. How could God love me? Almost to the point where we think we're supposed to do that, right?
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah, we think that shows people we're humble.
Right. You mean self-depreciating?
Yeah. So, is it okay to be comfortable with not being perfect, Mike?
I think it's entirely okay.
Yeah.
To be comfortable with the humanity that God gave us. He could have made us so much different, couldn't He?
You bet.
He could have.
Yeah.
But He made us what we are. And I think because God loves us the way we are, and even though we make mistakes from time to time and we're imperfect, He still loves us. Why can't, if He can love us that much, why can't we just say, you know what, it's okay for me to be an imperfect human being?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I be comfortable with that?
And you say it so well. I'm just going to read this part in chapter 10. The main problem with perfectionism is that it does not, underline not, cause perfection in a human being. It only causes anxiety. And in the end, it eventually causes us to stop trying to get better because it always tells us we're failing anyway, no matter how hard we try.
I think my perfectionism at different times in my sobriety has stopped me from moving forward.
You bet. Because we're all or nothing. You say it in here too. I just, I'm just looking at it. We're all or nothing. If I can't do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it at all.
Yeah, all or nothing. That's the way we are.
Yeah. And I would love to see this on the wall at every single 12-step meeting in the world. Striving for progress brings progress. Striving for perfection only brings us to a stop. I love that, man. That needs to be on every wall in every church, synagogue, and 12-step meeting in existence.
Yes.
It really does.
I agree.
You've done it again, brother. You've done an amazing work here, and like I said in the endorsement, it is anointed, simply meaning that God's hand is on this. How long did it take you to put this together? How long have you been working on it?
Oh, it's hard to tell how long I really worked on it, but I had started it probably a year ago, and it got left aside for a while I did other things, and it's just over a period of time it came together.
Well, you just as you did in your other book, you did something here. You leave a chapter open to us, the readers, entitled "Now It's Your Turn." And in the end of the book, you say on the pages that follow, you're invited and encouraged to become the author of the 12th chapter of this book. I hope you'll feel free to write down your own reflections, thoughts, and feelings, etc. So I want to give you an opportunity. We've got about 10 minutes left here. I want to give you an opportunity to expound on this book in any way that you deem fit, because I obviously haven't been able to touch on everything in here due to time. But I want you to just kind of take it from here and to share with the listeners your heart as far as this book goes, and as far as them getting a hold of this and getting this in their hands.
Well, what I want people to know in that book, by writing that book, what I wanted them to know is that don't be intimidated by meditation, and just keep it simple. And just always remember that there's no mystery to solve here. There's nothing that's hidden from you. Nothing. And spirituality and meditation and our life with God it's all yours. It's yours for the taking. And what I always want people to know is you don't have to learn how to do something new. You've had it inside you all your life. Meditation is as natural as breathing.
That's pretty simple.
It's really simple.
That's pretty simple.
It took me a long time to realize how simple it all is, and I think that's normal for a person like me, for an alcoholic like me.
And it's not only simple, it's really good news.
It is good news.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. I never thought of it that way. It is good news.
It's really good news. Gosh. You mean I can meditate and I can actually benefit from it and feel healthier and yeah?
Yeah. And one of the mistakes I made at first was, and I talked about them in the book, when I was beginning at step 11, for one thing, I thought that I was supposed to feel something, and if I didn't feel something, you know how we're always searching for that rush?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're always looking for that special feeling, Well, I didn't feel like I was feeling anything, and I thought, well, I must be doing this wrong,
Yeah.
And then I would get distracted by other things. Other thoughts would flow through my mind, and I'd go, well, I'm just not cut out for this, And what I finally had to do is I had to make friends with my own humanity. God gave me this mind, and thoughts are going to bounce in and bounce out,
Right.
And that's just a natural part of my humanity. And so finally, we were talking about getting comfortable with our humanity, but But really, that's what I had to do to really begin to incorporate meditation into my Step 11 exercise.
Mm-hmm. You know, we're talking about prayer and meditation today. We're talking about Step 11 today. And unfortunately, and Mike, you know this as well as I do, we lose a great deal of people at Step 4.
Yes, we do.
You know, there's a number of reasons for that. But it's so sad because there's so much more ready to be revealed and opened up to us. And I just want to encourage, for those of you who are new at this thing, and maybe you've done steps 1, 2, and 3 with a sponsor, maybe you haven't done them at all yet, don't shortchange yourself. There's so much that God wants to reveal to you and give to you. Listen, he likes you. He doesn't just love you. He likes you. He's on your side. And I will tell you that when you go through this step process and you develop this relationship with the Creator, it will change you forever. I promise. Doesn't it, Mike? It changes you forever.
Absolutely.
And people may still screw up. They may relapse. But it's different now. Something is different because God has come into your life and he is doing for you what you cannot do for yourself. He's giving you his strength so you can do your part, because you got to do your part. And a whole new world is open up to you. And so what I want to do today is I would like to take just the last couple of minutes here and let you know that if you are the fifth email, and they're all timestamped, so I'll know. If you're the fifth email after this show, I'm going to send you a copy of Basic Prayer and Simple Meditation. And I'm also going to include Mike's book, Letting God In, One Alcoholic Talks to Another, about AA's Step 4. We're going to send these to you. I want you to have them. The only thing that you need to promise me that you'll do, and I just want you to make this promise to yourself, really, is that you really will read these. And then if you will take them and pass them on to somebody else. Because these are jewels. These are, I mean, you can't put a monetary value on these listeners. You just can't. This is amazing work. And you know I'm very critical about literature. And please, believe me, you don't want to miss out. So fifth email. And make sure you give us your mailing address, your full name, and we'll get these out to you. But before we close, Mike, I would like to close with a short prayer and just a moment of silence to reflect on that. Is that okay?
That's great.
Absolutely. So, Heavenly Father, thank you so much for Mike D. Thank you for anointing this work and giving him this ability that comes from you to make something that would otherwise seem so complicated, so simple, so people like us can understand it. Lord, you are our healer and our strength. And many people are very, very sick, and they need your healing touch. So I'm going to take just a few seconds in a moment of silence and meditate on that truth, that you are our healing and our strength. So listeners, do that with me, will you? Just think about that. God, you're my healing and my strength. Okay, let's say it again. God, you are my healing and my strength. Amen. All right. Just in that short period of time, folks, you know what you did? You were meditating.
That's right.
Yeah. And Mike, thank you so much for being on the show, brother. Thank you so much for what you do.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been very, very much an honor.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, as always, you are welcome on anytime. Just keep pumping these out, my friend. What a gift. Okay, folks, Mike, don't hang up. I want to talk to you after the show. Folks, the website again is MikeDAuthor.blogspot.com. 12-Step Recovery Books by Mike D. You can click on the banner link on take12radio.com or on the link here on Interview Friday as well. The banner link on our main page will remain up even when this show is in the archives. Please check this out. Read his website and get a copy of this book. Email number 5, you're going to get a copy of each, courtesy, really, of Mike D and Take 12 Radio. All right, my friends, listen, until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man, along with my very special guest, author Mike D., and we're wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye now.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Kitty, 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 kitty.